All right, Chris. So breaking news here: Nick Saban retires. I mean, this just came out probably at the time of this. What, maybe 30 minutes ago, an hour ago,
Yeah,
something like that. Now,
yeah.
and we're still trying to break this down and digest this because this is not something you expect on a random Wednesday in January, right?
Oh,
Especially not when it's been what a week now, almost a little more than almost 2 weeks now since Alabama lost, and in the playoff there against Michigan. And so Nick Saban retires. He's going to finish off with a 292 wins, 71 losses, and one tie in his illustrious college career. 7 national championships, 11
wow.
SEC championships. The West Virginia native is retiring. Chris, I want to get your thoughts on this. And obviously, you have a deep, storied relationship with Nick Saban and what you view him as, right? Because
Yeah,
of your Dolphins.
yeah. I'm shocked by this news. I got a few reports. A couple people texted me, before this was released on ESPN and just announced. I actually called Christian, had to decipher this, and couldn't believe it. Honestly, I thought Saban would be around for at least a couple more years. I kind of always thought he would retire on a national championship. That's just me personally. Um, you know, what a career though. As much as I have some things, not so good to say about Saban and what he did to my Dolphins, he's still the greatest college coach of all time. I don't even think that's debatable. I don't.
Hmm.
There's been a lot of great coaches out there. I just don't. With Saban and what he's done, especially in today's era, the last 20 years, just the way with kids moving around, he's done a great job. 6 titles at Bama, man. Holy shit, he had the one at LSU. Man, it don't get much better than Nick Saban, dude. He was doing this in his late 60s, 70s, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, agreed, Chris. I mean, in my perspective, I've been a lifelong Georgia Bulldog fan. My wife, I was telling her, before we got on here, I said, "My God, Nick Saban just retired." She was like, "Really? How do you feel about that?" And I said, "Well, be honest, I've been waiting for this day ever since 2008. If I'm being honest, but I respect Saban. I respect that Alabama program, what they've done. I mean, they truly were a dynasty, and he truly was one of the best coaches in all of college football. I don't think there's any debate about that, Chris. The big question here is obviously it happened. It felt really late, and we talked about it when we were off air. We were touching on it, and we've even kind of made some comments on air. It seemed kind of like the writing maybe was on the wall. Saban is a very, intense coach, right? He's very even if you're in the middle of a blowout, he's still ripping
Oh yeah.
someone's ass for not doing something right. He just demands perfection. And I feel like you kind of saw it over the last couple years. He started kind of easing off a little bit. And even this year, he jumped on the Pat McAfee show. Saban, by the way, he hates the media. That was his whole thing. He hates the media. He was kind of like Belichick, and he was just there so he didn't get fined, right? He just,
Yep.
it's part of the job. I have to be here. I'd rather be recruited. I'd rather be doing other things. But it kind of seemed to go out of his way almost this year to jump on some of those shows, to kind of do some of these other things. And I think, when we look back at this, if you really start trying to piece these things together, you would have saw that writing on the wall.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that's the big thing, Christian. I honestly think he'll be an analyst for ESPN or somebody,
Yeah.
we talked about this before too. And before we got on the show here a little bit was the guy has put 28 years and even more into football in his life. And being a head coach, I couldn't imagine being a head coach in today's game, Christian. It's got to be recruiting 24/7, public announcements, team stuff, coaching on top of it. And I believe, recruiting is 80% of it in college football being successful. Nick Saban was, I would say, the best at it and has been the best at it forever. But I mean, the guy's 72 years old. He's got a family. He's got kids. I'm sure he wants to sit down and relax. I know he's got a retirement home in Florida. I'm sure that's where he's going. And I'm sure he could do some stuff, like I said, to start this off with ESPN and get paid a ton of money to do so. He's obviously a knowledgeable guy. He knows the game inside and out. So, like Christian said, like I said, I got to say hats off to Saban. As much as I don't like, what he did to the Finns, the guy's a great college coach. And I think he would, honestly, if he would have stuck in the NFL, I think he'd have been a great NFL coach too. I really do. The guy's great. That's all I can say about him.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. I mean, I think, a lot of people are going to say, well, you know, he knew he was going to retire this whole time. I don't think he knew he was going to retire. I think he was going back and forth with it because if he knew he was going to retire, I have a very strong feeling he would have done it probably. He would have done it before the transfer portal would have closed. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I want to add something to this. It's kind of funny. A lot of people, Mike Krzyzewski did that with Duke, right? He was one of the
Yeah.
legendary head coaches in basketball a couple years ago. He had his last farewell tour thing, right? They do that.
Yeah.
Saban, he didn't do that this year. It wasn't the farewell tour thing like Kobe Bryant did it. Like everybody kind of does that. Not everybody, but Tom Brady had a hard time stepping away from the game. Legends. I'm talking about legends, whether you're a player or a coach. I don't think Saban knew, dude. I don't think he knew.
I don't think he did either. And I think even if he did know, I don't think that's Saban. Saban doesn't want all that. He doesn't want a distraction from the team. He wants to be able to go out and compete and win games and win championships. That's what Saban wanted to do. And by the way, when I meant, the transfer portal closed, I meant, they extended it for the playoff teams, right? And, it's weird because it closed, I think, last week. Or maybe it was earlier this week is when it closed, for them. And so a lot of roster movement is going to be probably on the horizon. I think Bama already had, was it like 18 players in the portal? I know it's not, in today's day and age, it's not uncommon for teams to lose a bunch of players through the portal, my Bulldogs included. I think it's weird because I'm not used to seeing Bama lose that many pieces, to the portal. So I would like to think, we talked about it, because of the timing of it, it seems really late. You know what I mean? It seems really late. It's not so late. I'm just saying I'm going to be curious to see who they end up getting. They're going to have to move quick, though. Now they got to move quick. Some names that come to mind. Just one name off the top of my head, Dabo Swinney, right? I know he's a Alabama graduate. His name's probably been linked to that job for a while. This year they had in Clemson. I mean, a lot of Clemson fans were kind of pissed off, and they ended it kind of strong, but, there was kind of a fracture in there of that relationship. A lot of names are going to get thrown out here, Chris. We were talking about it before we got on. Who are some candidates that you think Alabama is going to go after?
I think Lane Kiffin. I know that some people will laugh at that. He did coach under Saban. I know Lane Kiffin's been around college football in a lot of major programs in his time. He did have a good season at Ole Miss this year. I think everybody can agree the year they had this year was awesome. The big win over Penn State. I think he's a name. You could Google this and you can look all you want. You're going to get every high-profile coach. Everybody's going to think, right? I've already heard Dan Lanning over at Oregon, which is crazy to me. I don't think he will leave Oregon. I just don't. What was the other one? Oh, Sark. Sark coached under
Steve Sarkisian.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Jimbo Fisher got floated out there. Not because I think, and again, some of these names we're throwing out, like I don't think Lane Kiffin coming to Alabama is going to be, the next Nick Saban. I think we're seeing what he's doing at Ole Miss. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, he doesn't have the same. Look, you can either coach defense or you cannot coach defense. Let's be honest. Lincoln Riley, at Oklahoma is the same Lincoln Riley at USC. He just maybe has access to a little bit better recruits, right? So until they change that, I don't want to hear it. Jimbo Fisher, do I think he's the best coach? I think he's going to be a guy that could come in and get some high-profile recruits. It's a high-profile job, and that's kind of what Alabama's looking for, right? We're talking about these Nick Sabans, these Kirby Smarts. I'll even throw Dabo in there, right? There's not that many coaches that have national championship experience, at this level. And I think that when we talk about it, everybody from Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator, who's the only coordinator there now, he's pretty much the high profile guy there at Bama right now, right?
Yeah, Steele's gone. I mean, he's retiring as well. He's done. I mean, he's been coaching for, I swear, 100 years. But
everybody from Tommy Rees to Bill Belichick is going to be thrown out for this job opening. But here's the thing: I'll guarantee you, they'll probably try to have this wrapped up before February.
Yeah, I would agree. Sooner the better. Like I said, we're never going to truly know whether, Saban knew or Alabama knew this was coming or not. I'm not going to get on here and say that yet, but could you see, potential buyouts for some of these coaches too? Like Dan Lanning would be a buyout of like 20 million. Caleb DeBoer is getting thrown around, by the way, from Washington, which is kind of interesting. He's like a 12 million though. I think Dabo Swinney's right up there around 8 million, maybe. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to sit there. There's going to be a lot of talk, and we're going to hear a lot more about this. This is so early. This just came out, like I said, 40 minutes ago. But I don't know, man. Could you see maybe Mike Norvell, Florida State, somebody like that? I mean, he's pretty low on the pay scale. He's had a great season there.
Everybody is a candidate for this. Everybody. Yeah, I mean, nothing. Am I on that? Am I on there? If they're okay with giving somebody that has zero head coaching experience, a shot, I mean, let's be honest. I would do it. I do it to the best of my ability. Okay. Even when we got to play my dogs, dude.
I was going to say, how would that work against Georgia?
I'm gonna be honest. I think just the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think it strikes fear into the dogs, man. Let's be honest. Saban was 5. You were talking about this. You were like, You think Saban? You asked me. You said, you think Saban was retiring because he was afraid of Kirby? I said, hell no. He's 5-1 against Kirby. I mean, he owned us, dude. I mean, he owned us, and I think a lot more of it had to do with, a lot of people are going to say, man, I feel like he still had some years left. And this probably may not be the last time we see Saban coaching. You see it all the time. Guys retire and they get bored, right? It's like anybody that retires, right? You work all your life, you finally retire, you get to kind of gear down a little bit, and then you don't know what to do with yourself. You got to constantly be doing something. And then you start to miss that grind. You start to, those things that annoyed you when you were working, you start to miss that kind of that busy work almost. And with coaching at this level, let's be honest, dude. I mean, you're constantly recruiting. From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you're recruiting. If you're not recruiting, you're studying game film. If you're not studying game film, you're at practice. And now with the transfer portal and all of that, and the way athletes are going and coming, you're having to pretty much recruit your roster of kids that you have right now and keep them in house.
No, it's a full-time job. I mean, and I like I said, Saban's been doing it for a lot of years. I'm sure I would be shocked if he came back and coached again.
I would too. The only place I could see Saban maybe coming back, he's a West Virginia guy, right? True. Maybe a couple years down the road, West Virginia is just really going through it. They maybe approach him, say, hey, look, we know you're the GOAT. We know you've been out of football for probably 3-4 years. Why don't you come over here?
Yeah,
he might do it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just, he's had such a crazy, great career. His record's unreal, by the way. You never know. I would be shocked if he did, though. I think I just watched a documentary on him, not too long ago, and it was very interesting from his days, growing up till where he's at now. And, man, he's a go-getter, 100%, dude. And, he talked a lot about family and that thing, wanting to spend time with his kids. I think he's got a daughter and a son. And I'm sure probably at this age, he's got grandchildren too. I'm sure you probably want to spend some time with them. I mean, 70 years old nowadays, Christian, I don't want to say old, but I mean, man, you're not guaranteed the next day anymore. So you never know. But again, I do want to say hats off to Saban though, man. I'm still taking some time to process this, that he's retired. It's crazy.
I think we all are. One other side of this I do want to note is, it's been linked. We've heard it. ESPN. Whoever wants him. I mean, they're gonna pay him to come be an analyst. Paul Feinbaum got to sit out there and be critical of Saban for all those years. I mean, they've had a very public beef. I think is between him and Paul Feinbaum. Watch out, Paul. He might be coming for your job.
Yeah, I'd listen to Nick Saban over Paul Feinbaum any day. By the way, God.
Oh man.